What's going on, guys? In this little bonus video today, we're going to be looking at some exclusive footage for For Honor. Now, some of you might remember I was one of the first in the world to play the multiplayer component of this game all the way back at Gamescom last year. The game was pretty brutal then, and as you can probably see, it is still ridiculously brutal right now. These finishing moves are ridiculous. This time, however, I got to try my hand at the single-player campaign component of the game, playing as a Viking assaulting an old Japanese fortress. Not sure how historically accurate that really is, but the entire game is set in a little bit of an alternate universe, so who the hell cares? Now, when it comes to medieval games, I generally have one of two problems. Either one, the combat is just way too easy and you spend most of your time just button mashing and soaring through enemies, or number two, the combat feels pretty skillless. Winning fights feels more like a factor of luck, and a lot of the time when you die, you just feel like you didn't deserve to. For Honor, however, is probably the first real AAA medieval combat game I've seen released in a long time, and it does a great job of solving both these problems. During combat, you can take one of three stances: left, right, or vertical, which you can see from the three-pointed circle on the screen. To block enemies, you mimic their stance, and to attack, you need to do so from an angle which they're not blocking from. This leads to really interesting, fun, and engaging combat systems. The first really skilled combat system I've really ever seen in a video game like this. In combat, there are two types of enemies. The first kind is basically just there to get destroyed. You don't really need to take a stance against these guys. You just mash your attack and you'll slice through them like grass. The second kind, though, are the real tough guys. These ones you fight with a stance-based combat, and depending on their faction, each enemy is different. I played as a Viking, and they essentially just hit really frickin' hard, caving in enemy skulls on each hit, and you can almost one-hit a lot of enemies. The Samurai, on the other hand, while dealing a little bit less damage, move really fast, and even have some awesome ninja moves where they can flip over your back to disorient you. Because of this, you need to adapt your fighting style depending on the faction you're both playing as and fighting against. For example, in this game, I used a lot more quick attacks, as opposed to Vikings, which normally use the massive heavy hit. Now, combat aside, if there's one thing you can probably tell just from watching this video, it's that the game is gorgeous. From the graphics themselves to the silky smooth animations, the game just looks fantastic. The detailing on the environment is also pretty amazing. Just look around the ground as I'm walking through the level and you can see bodies, blood-covered swords, and hundreds of little bits of attention to detail that just make the game super immersive. Now, if there was one concern I'd have for the game, however, it could be repetitiveness. While the multiplayer component of the game has enough really cool movement, abilities, and challenges to keep you interested for a really long time, I am a little bit worried that in single player, each level could just feel like a long linear line of slashing through enemies before you encounter that extra special boss at the end, who really just has a little bit more health and a faster programmed reaction time than the previous enemies. That said, hopefully the developers can find a new and interesting way to break up the levels. And for some people, though, I guess that kind of linear fighting is great and is really just all they want. It's just never really been my type of thing. For example, I still haven't finished the Doom single player. But all that said, this game is incredible, and it is definitely up there in my top 2 games from E3, alongside Sea of Thieves. You can see I've got a little bit of a thing for kind of medieval sword fighting and cannons and all that kind of stuff. The gameplay has got real depth, especially for a medieval game, and the graphics and animation are gorgeous. And on top of all that, I just really want to play as the Samurai, because I love Samurai. For Honor is set for release on February 14 in 2017, but if you can't wait that long to play, I hear they are gonna have an alpha coming up in the next couple of months.